They don't cancel plans. They never made them. Friday night? They're home. Saturday afternoon? Still home. And they're not lonely, bored, or missing out. They're exactly where they want to be, and there's a psychology behind why some people feel most alive when they're staying in. You know them. The friend who says, "Let me check my schedule," but you both know the answer is no. The one who lights up when plans get cancelled, who treats their home like a sanctuary, not a waiting room. They're not antisocial. They have friends. They can socialize. They just don't want to. Not because something's wrong, but because something's right. Their home isn't where they hide from life. It's where they actually live it. And when the world calls that strange, they just shrug and close the door, because they learnt something most people spend their whole lives searching for. Some of them discovered it young. Maybe they were the kid who brought a book to the party, who felt more exhausted after fun than after a full day of school. They learnt early, the world takes more than it gives. Others figured it out later, after years of forcing themselves to go out, be social, say yes to everything, after coming home drained, wondering why everyone else seemed energized by the same experiences that emptied them. That's when they stopped pretending. And some just always knew. Home was where they built Lego cities that took weeks, where they read until 3 a.m, where silence felt like a conversation, not an absence. Their energy didn't come from crowds, it came from solitude. And once they accepted that, everything made sense. Where I used to feel guilty about it, like I was wasting my youth by staying in, like I should want to be out there, doing things, being seen. But then I realized something. The nights I stayed home, those were the nights I actually remembered. The book that changed how I think. The recipe I finally perfected. The project I finished because I had uninterrupted hours. The nights I went out, they blurred together. Same conversations, same noise, same performance of having a good time, because that's what you're supposed to do. Home wasn't boring. It was rich, layered, full of things I actually cared about. And the people who didn't get it, they were welcome to their Friday nights. I had already found mine. Psychologists call people like this high-functioning introverts or contentment-driven individuals, not hermits, not depressed, just wired differently. Their nervous system processes stimulation differently. What energizes extroverts, crowds, noise, social unpredictability, drains them, not because they're weak, but because their baseline for stimulation is already higher. Home isn't escape, it's regulation. They also tend to have rich inner worlds. They don't need external entertainment because their minds are constantly creating, analyzing, connecting ideas. A Saturday alone isn't empty. It's full of thoughts, projects, peace. And here's the part people miss. They're not avoiding connection. They're being selective about it. They'd rather have one deep conversation at home than 10 shallow ones at a bar. Quality over quantity, depth over breadth, meaning over momentum. You're right and I'm fine. You're going to regret missing experiences. I'm having experiences, just not the ones you value. Don't you get lonely? Only when I'm forced to be around people I don't connect with. That last one confuses people, but it's true. Loneliness isn't about being alone, it's about being disconnected. And homebodies feel more disconnected in a crowded room than in their living room at 10 p.m. with a cup of tea and their own thoughts. The world equates staying home with giving up, with sadness, with something missing, but nothing's missing. Something's been found. They've found what makes them feel whole, and it doesn't require plans, crowds, or proving anything to anyone. People who love staying home are often misunderstood as lazy, boring, or scared. But here's what they actually are: self-aware. They know what drains them and what fills them, and they protect that knowledge fiercely. Grounded. They don't need external validation to feel alive. They've built a life that sustains itself from the inside out. Creative. Boredom doesn't scare them, it fuels them. They've learnt to turn solitude into something productive, meaningful, restorative. And here's the strength people overlook: they can't be peer pressured. They've already said no to the world's expectations. They've chosen themselves over social currency. And once you've done that, you're free in ways most people never experience. That's not isolation, that's autonomy. There is a cost to living this way. You'll be misunderstood, called boring, left out of group chats. Some friendships will fade because they were built on convenience, not actual connection. But here's the gift. You get your weekends back, your evenings, your mental energy. You're not emotionally wrecked because you forced yourself to be somewhere you didn't want to be. You build identity around things you actually do, not things you pretend to enjoy. And you learn something crucial: you don't need to follow the crowd to belong. The psychology of people who love staying home isn't about fear or avoidance. It's about knowing yourself well enough to design a life that fits. They're not waiting for life to start. They're not missing out. They're not lonely. They're home. And that's exactly where they want to be. If you're one of them, you already know this. You've heard the questions, weathered the judgment, explained 100 times that no, you're not depressed, you're just different. And that difference is your superpower. You don't need the noise to feel alive. You don't need the crowd to feel connected. You don't need to prove your life is full by filling your calendar. You already know it's full, because you're in it. Do you love staying home? What's something you do at home that people don't understand brings you joy? Drop it in the comments. Let's celebrate the homebodies. If this made you feel seen, hit subscribe, we understand you. And if you've ever been called boring for staying in, leave a like. You're not boring, you're just living differently. Here's what society doesn't tell you about staying home. It's not the beginning of withdrawal. It's often the beginning of creation. Think about it. Every book you love, written by someone who spent months alone in a room. Every piece of music that moved you, composed in solitude. Every invention that changed the world, built by someone who said no to distractions and yes to focus. Homebodies aren't opting out of life. They're opting into depth, and depth requires time, uninterrupted time. The kind you can't get when you're constantly performing the social version of yourself. But here's the paradox people miss. Staying home doesn't make you less capable of socializing. It makes you better at it. Because when you do show up, when you choose to be there, you're fully present. You're not drained before you arrive. You're not counting down the minutes until you can leave. You're there because you want to be. And people feel that. The homebody who comes to your dinner party, they're not scrolling on their phone. They're engaged, listening, contributing. Because they protected their energy for moments that actually matter. That's not antisocial. That's intentional. And let's talk about what happens at home that people don't see. The conversations you have with yourself. The ideas you explore without judgment. The standards you set without compromise. Home is where you practice becoming who you actually are. Not the work version. Not the social version. Not the version that's trying to impress anyone. Just you. Unfiltered. Unpressured. Unperformed. And in a world that constantly demands performance, that's revolutionary. There's a question people always ask, but what if you're missing out? Missing out on what? Small talk with strangers? Hangovers? Overpriced drinks? Pretending to enjoy loud music you can't even think through? Here's the truth. FOMO is manufactured. It's sold to you by people who profit from your presence. Real life, your actual life, isn't happening somewhere else. It's happening wherever you are. And if you're home, building something, learning something, resting, creating, thinking, that's not missing out. That's showing up for yourself. The people who love staying home have figured out something fundamental. You don't need permission to live differently. You don't need to justify why a quiet Friday night feels better than a crowded club. You don't need to apologize for protecting your peace. And you definitely don't need to prove your life is valuable by filling it with things that drain you. Your life is already valuable because you're living it on your terms. So if you're reading this and you've ever felt guilty for cancelling plans, don't. If you've ever been called boring for choosing your couch over a party, you're not. If you've ever wondered if something's wrong with you because you'd rather be home, nothing is. You're not broken. You're not missing a piece. You've just found what most people are still searching for. A place where you belong, where you don't have to perform, where you can just be. And that place is home. So here's to the homebodies, the introverts, the selective socializers, the people who know that a full life doesn't mean a full calendar. You're not hiding from the world. You're building one, quietly, intentionally, yours. And that's not something to fix. That's something to celebrate.